Great, thank you, Ms. Kazak. Okay, well, good evening, everyone. I'm Mayor Val Vandenbroek, and I'd like to call the January 24th, 2022 public hearing to order and begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is the traditional unceded territory of the Katzie, Kwantlen, Masqui, and Semiahmoo First Nations. And with me this evening, I have Councillor Paul Albrecht, Councillor Terry James, Councillor Gail Martin, Councillor Nathan Pahal, Councillor Rudy Storteboom, and Councillor Rosemary Wallace. For staff tonight, we have Francis Chung, our Chief Administrative Officer, Darren Light, our Director of Corporate Services, Carl Johansson, our Director of Development Services, Rick Baumhoff, our Director of Engineering, Parks and Environment, Kim Hilton, our Director of Recreation, Culture and Community Services, and Kelly Kenny, our Corporate Officer. So this public hearing is being convened pursuant to Section 464 of the Local Government Act in order to consider three bylaws. Bylaw 3199, Zoning Bylaw Amendment number 185, Body Art and Tattoo Services Separation Amendment, a bylaw to exempt one of two properties at a time from the 400 meters spacing requirement between tattoo services in the general provisions for Lady Luck Tattoo. And bylaw 3195, zoning amendment or zoning bylaw amendment number 184, RZ 1021, and development permit DP 1321. And that's a bylaw to rezone properties located at 19701 to 19729 55A Avenue from an RS1 single family residential zone to an RM1 multi-residential low density zone to the CD81 comprehensive development zone to accommodate a 6-story, 96-unit apartment development. So I'd like to start off by saying I'd like to thank everyone for attending this public hearing, which is taking place by electronic means via Zoom. If we encounter technical challenges during the meeting, please stand by, as we want to ensure everyone who wishes to speak is afforded the opportunity to do so. This public hearing is being live streamed on the city's YouTube channel and is also being recorded and will be posted on the city's webpage. If you are watching and wish to attend this electronic meeting, you can go to langleycity.ca to register and join the meeting. At this public hearing, those in attendance at this meeting who believe that their interest in property is affected by any of the proposed bylaws will be allowed to make representations to council and shall be given a reasonable opportunity to be heard respecting matters contained in the bylaws. Once in the meeting, you may use the raise hand function to indicate your wish to speak, which will automatically put you in the speaker queue. You will be invited to speak in the order in which your hands are raised. When it is your turn to speak, staff will prompt you with a message asking you to unmute your microphone and you may begin speaking. Please commence your comments to council by clearly stating your name and street address. Unit numbers are not required. Then you may give us the benefit of your views concerning the bylaws. Your name, address, and comments will form part of the record of this public hearing. Members of council may, if they wish, ask questions of you following your presentation. However, the main function of council members this evening is to listen to the views of the public. It is not the function of the council at this public hearing to debate the merits of the proposed bylaws with individual citizens. Once you have completed your comments, staff will mute your microphone. Everybody shall be given a reasonable opportunity to be heard at this meeting. No one will be or should feel discouraged or prevented from making their views heard. Once everyone who wishes to speak has done so, I will call for speakers for a second time, at which time those who wish to speak again should indicate so by using the raise hand function again. I will then call for speakers for a third and final time. If there are no further speakers, I will ask for a motion to close the public hearing. The public was also given the opportunity to provide written submissions for this public hearing. All submissions will be retained by the corporate officer, and copies of the submissions will be available from her on request following the hearing and shall form part of the public record of these proceedings. Ms. Kenny, can you please advise how notification was provided for this public hearing and whether we received any correspondence?
Yes, Madam Mayor, 2 newspaper advertisements for each of the bylaws was placed in the January 13th and 20th editions of the Langley Advance Times, and notices were mailed out to the owners who are within 100 meters of the subject properties. Notice of the public hearing was placed on the city's website and on the notice posting board on the first floor at City Hall. No correspondence has been received in relation to Bylaw 3199. 18 pieces of correspondence have been received in relation to Bylaw 3195. 15 of which were included in the agenda package, and 3 were circulated to council after publication of the agenda.
Great, thank you. Okay, on to the business of the evening. Bylaw 3199, zoning bylaw amendment number 185, body art and tattoo services separation amendment. And I believe Mr. Johansson, you're going to provide an overview of the purpose of the bylaw.
Yes, thank you and good evening, Mayor and Council and members of the audience. This proposed rezoning is being brought forward to enable an existing longtime city business. It's been in the city for 27 years, Lady Luck Tattoo Parlor, to move to another location as the building they are currently located in is being proposed for redevelopment. More specifically, this proposed bylaw would enable this tattoo parlor business to relocate to another site on Fraser Highway and within 400 meters of another tattoo parlor. The city's zoning bylaw currently requires a 400-meter separation between tattoo body art businesses, and the proposed relocation address is about 70 to 80 meters from an existing tattoo establishment at 203 in Fraser Highway. However, given that this approach won't result in additional tattoo parlors in the city or an overconcentration beyond what was the intent of the bylaw, and the proposed location is separated from another tattoo business by a major arterial intersection and are not on the same block face, staff are supportive of this approach as it facilitates the relocation of an existing business and won't result in an overconcentration of these businesses along Fraser Highway. The proposed bylaw is also written in a manner that enables Lady Luck to relocate to the redeveloped property at 20785 Fraser Highway once that redevelopment is complete. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Ms. Kuzak, can you please advise if there's anyone in attendance electronically at this meeting who wishes to speak to this bylaw 3199?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have 5 members of the public in attendance. However, at this point, no one is indicating they'd like to speak.
Okay, I'll call for a second time for speakers on bylaw 3199.
And still no speakers.
And I will call for a third and final time for speakers on bylaw 3199.
Mr. Pryor would like to speak, Madam Mayor.
Please go ahead, Mr. Pryor.
Thank you. I'm Mike Pryor. I'm at 20771 Fraser Highway in Langley, and I will keep this really brief. I just want to say thank you so much for the opportunity to present this and for just considering this bylaw amendment for us. It means a lot to stay in the city. We've been here for a long time and we really don't want to leave. That's all. Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, so I will call for a third and final time for any speakers in regards to bylaw 3199.
No speakers, Madam Mayor.
Okay, seeing no speakers, do any members of council have any questions regarding bylaw 3199? Again, any questions from council? Seeing none. Okay, so we will move on to item B then. Bylaw 3195, zoning bylaw amendment number 184, RZ 1021 and development permit DP 1321. And I believe Mr. Johansson, you have a brief overview of the purpose of bylaw 3195, please. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Good evening once again, Mayor and Council and audience members. This proposed rezoning and development permit application for A 6-story apartment building was reviewed by the city's advisory design panel, and the applicant has incorporated the panel's recommendations into their drawings, including adjustments to the open space, implements, and underground parkade, and provision of future e-bike charging capability. This application is located in an area that has permitted townhouses and apartment buildings up to 4 stories through the land uses in the previous official community plan, or OCP, which was originally adopted in 2005. The recently adopted new OCP includes the same land uses, townhouses and apartments, but enables apartments up to 6 stories. This land use reflects the existing condition in the neighborhood, which includes a mix of apartment buildings and townhomes. The large deep site also enables a larger than usual front and rear yard setbacks, including about a 7-meter front yard setbacks. The nominal or normal setback for apartment building is 6 meters. And the setback of this proposed building is also further back than the townhouses along 55A Street, which average around 4 meter setback. The rear yard setback, as I said, is about 7 meters for where the building is closest to the lane. And a majority of the L-shaped building is further away at around 20 meters away from the lane to create the open space. The building form also steps down to 4 stories to create gradual building transitions on the west side, which currently hosts townhouses, and on the east side, which currently hosts townhouses, and on the west side, which could redevelop to townhouses or an apartment building in the future. This proposal also involves a small residential parking variance using a rate of 1.1 spaces per 1 bedroom instead of the current 1.2 spaces per bedroom. And that's consistent with the rates that are being considered for the new zoning bylaw. And the applicant is also proposing a higher percentage of small parking spaces, 46% relative to the current limit of 40%. And again, that's consistent with what's being contemplated for the new zoning bylaw. Staff also note that the west and east side of the partially exposed parkade, which is raised a little bit above grade due to geotechnical conditions, is proposed to be treated with paint, shrubs, and trees to provide a green buffer interface between properties. And if this project is approved and constructed, the new curb and gutter and pavement along 55A Avenue will enable additional on-street parking opportunities for the neighborhood, probably yielding in the order of around 12 parallel on-street parking spaces. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Mr. Johansson. And I'll now ask the applicant, maybe you could introduce yourselves first and then do the presentation, please.
Yes, this is Kyle Nachtigal with Keystone Architecture. We'll be doing a presentation tonight. I'm here with the developer Vikas Sharma, architect of record Eric Poxleitner, and Bronwyn Jones with PMG Architect, who's the landscape designer on the project. We'll be providing a presentation tonight, going through the development and answering whatever questions you may have. With that said, I will begin. All right, so the project, as Director Johansson mentioned, is on 55A Avenue. It's a 96-unit, 6-story residential building with some articulation of the building stepping down to 4 stories on the neighboring properties. We have a mix of units between 1 beds to 2-bed and flex spaces, providing a mix of opportunities for different units throughout the building. 1 level of parkade, half exposed in the ground. And we had a public information meeting back in October where 1 member of the public attended, and we had a dialogue over some of their concerns. Context to where the building is going to be sited. Again, as Director mentioned, there's the apartment blocks, or the townhouse blocks rather, just to the south of the development and to the east. And then to the west of it, there is single family homes. We're just, I guess, southwest of the city center, more towards the industrial portion of City of Langley, but just south of 56 there. Aerial view of the overall context for your reference with the townhouse developments that are have been newly constructed across the street. The older Huntsfield Green, which is just a little bit farther south from that, and then the Bryden Off-Leash Park, just further south from that. And then at the corner, we have the Montessori School for daycare use. Again, you can see the overall massing of the building with the stepping down to 4 stories on east and west, trying to be sensitive to the neighborhood in our design. Overall walk and bike score places it, again, just outside of the city center. We are in that kind of transitioning neighborhood from single family to multifamily, just south of 56th. And as you can see, there's quite a few walking parks and trails with Bryden Lagoon just a few minutes down the block or down the street, 5-minute walk away with, or 5 to 10 minute walk away with further parks down the Chaude. Overall, this is our site plan design, and just walk you through the context. North is on the top side of the page. 55A is on the south, on the bottom of the page. And we have the laneway access, which goes back towards 196. Our access to the parkade is along the lane, and our visitor parking is also along the lane. And all parking with those new parking ratios that Director Johansson had mentioned are satisfied on site, and we are proposing a loading zone to the northeast of the northeast corner of the site to allow for basically all move-in and unloading to be satisfied on site rather than blocking street traffic. Ron, if you'd like to come on and just talk about our approach to our landscaping, and then I will continue after Ron is finished.
Okay, Kyle, will you be zooming in on the site plan there?
I can, yes, just let me know where.
Can you zoom in at this, just full screen for that particular window? Yeah, the next drawing down. Yeah, and so if we can just take a little tour of the development from the landscape point of view. When you come in off 55A, the first thing you would see is a new grass boulevard. It's 15 feet deep as it is, and close to 250 feet long, and then it has new street trees in it. You would also see some low retaining walls on the left side that have been planted. And on the right side of the main entry, you would also see some perennial plantings, some ornamental grass planting. And then at the podium level, you would see a lot of vertical plant interest in the way of trees and shrubs. So when you first come in off the main walkway, we have accessible ramp moving up to the main podium level. And on the left, you would see at the entries bike racks to allow for people who are visitors who are bringing bikes to park their bikes there. On the left, there's also an access down to the parkade. So at the podium level in the landscape, there's a number of patios for the people who have units there, and semi-private landscaped areas that are fenced off. So they have a very nice garden sort of feel to each of their units. On the podium level, on either side, we have considered the issues of privacy and just overall greening and screening of the building by incorporating some taller evergreen trees and some ornamental trees along either side. If you move through the building, the interior amenity spaces are in the back at the L shape. There's a amenity room there, a clubhouse and a gym. So what we tried to do is design spaces that flowed with those uses. And we have, as you can see there at the back, a dining area. So there's double picnic tables back there with a plexiglass covered arbor that will be useful in many types of weather. We have seating benches and barbecue areas. And on the right-hand side, outside the dining area, we have incorporated some social areas for people to be able to visit and enjoy each other's company. As you move around to the left, you'll see some wide walkways that have seating edges along them. And you go up a few steps up to a sod lawn area that's open for things like anything from yoga to just relaxing to kicking the ball around. There's a bench up there. And then to the left, in the sunniest part of the backyard, is the play area. So we are incorporating a play area that can have, it's a piece that actually has interest for kids of all sorts of ages, actually. And then we've got a seating area at the far side for parents who want to keep an eye on their kids or kids who just want to relax. There's also another bench and some, the whole area has high quality paving. And as you move farthest to the left, there's a ramp that goes to the back lane. So we have another area of accessibility there. And on the back, there's a very nice structure over the garbage and recycling area that's architectural in nature. And essentially, that's the site plan.
Thank you, Bron. Yeah, just to touch on what Rhonda mentioned, which I had not shown, is that we do want to highlight the accessibility of the amenity space in the back, providing both a ramp on the front entrance on the south, or the main entrance on the south, as well as that rear entrance to the amenity space, so that any visitors that park at the back will be able to roll up the accessible ramp and into the building or into the outdoor amenity area to gather together. Moving on from there, just showing some shadow studies on the property. Again, as we've articulated the building, localizing that 6-story component to the center of the building and then stepping down, we are minimizing our shadow impact on the properties to the north. Also having the lane helps with that separation between this property and the neighboring properties to the north. Here's our parkade plan. One item I wanted to mention was just the work with the ADP, working on the bike storage. One of the components that was mentioned was providing a space for bike maintenance and providing infrastructure for e-bikes coming in the future. Both of those the design team and ourselves, we considered and incorporated into the design so that there is a walkability and a sustainability component to the piece when it comes to infrastructure for the residences, that we can have spaces for bike storage separate from the storage of the building, and then also incorporate flexibility for future improvements when it comes to EV bikes. Some other pieces were just working with accessibility around the parkade. Our original design had no movement between some aisles, so we incorporated those comments as well. Looking at the floor plans, they're typical for levels 2 to 4. 2 to 4 are typical, and 5 and 6 are typical. We've actually tapered the building size as it goes up, so that as we're in the 5th and 6th stories, the building's actually a little smaller in footprint. Again, trying to minimize the impact of that 6th story as much as possible. And looking at that first level there, just mentioning what Ron had touched on about the indoor amenity spaces being able to connect right out to the outdoor. Important piece to ourselves as the design team to incorporate the indoor amenity spaces as one. Here's just a streetscape along 55A looking north. So we've roughed in a conceptual future townhome on the west side. It's not there yet, or it's not there currently, but if there ever was a townhouse to be developed along the west side there, this is sort of the setbacks that we've incorporated, and again, stepping that building down to the neighboring properties so that we're not towering over these smaller buildings or smaller townhouse developments. The exterior of the building is cementitious panels with different wood tones, grays, material types throughout. So there will be using some variation when it comes to the material type, and we're also incorporating brick moments along 55A that are essentially hidden by some other build outs, and you can see that brick design in behind. So we're using a wide variety of materials on the exteriors, a lot of build outs and articulation to the actual building design itself to create interest. We're also providing deeper balconies than typically would be built. So that the residents have a nice outdoor space that's tucked back into their unit, but also creates moments to experience, obviously to be out in the sun. The east and west spaces, again, you can see a little bit more on the design as we turn around the buildings towards the back side. And the last couple of slides here, we'll have a few renderings for you guys to look at. This is again 55A looking north from the townhouse developments across the street. You can see that we've provided brick cladding on the lower planters to hide the parkade as it extends out, along with extensive planting to try and mitigate any sort of exposed concrete that would be seen. Obviously, we'll be covering that with brick and landscaping. Here's a view from the back side above the lane looking on the outdoor amenity. And you can see the accessible ramp on the right side of your screen, along with the parkade entrance, the covered garbage enclosure off the back there, and then the planting and play areas of that outdoor amenity. Along with touching on the materials I was talking about just now, of the different build outs and articulation of the building. Again, trying to manage that height was a key piece to this design. And obviously articulating the building massing aids in that. And our last slide here is just a couple of close-up shots on some of the areas of interest, the front entrance being on the left side of your screen there. And then the rear view overlooking the amenity is on the right side. That is the conclusion to our presentation. We thank you for your time, and please we'll direct or address any questions that you may have.
Great, thank you for that presentation. Ms. Cusack, can you please advise if there's anyone in attendance electronically at this meeting who wishes to speak to Bylaw 3195?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have a couple of speakers. Mr. Fitzgerald would like to go first. If I can ask you to start by stating your name and street number, please.
Mr. Fitzgerald, did you want to go ahead? And you might be on mute. If you could show your camera, just
there we go. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor and councilors. Yes, after 35 years working in construction, building 30 townhouse and condos from Whistler to Chilliwack, I have many concerns, and I hope you have the 15 subjects that I want to discuss about the density already experienced. 55A Avenue is already built with a medium density with townhome developments. The whole neighborhood rebuilding phase has been townhomes. And to add this apartment at almost the end of this development is unconscionable. An apartment condo development on 55A Avenue, which is a dead end, it should have been built first before anything else was built because of the disruptions it's going to cause. The whole community here will be adversely affected, not only during the long construction phase, but overcrowding after it's completed. The size of this development is too large for the neighborhood that is already established as a townhome community. I don't see any construction impact study. There will be hundreds, if not 1,000 trucks coming up 55A and the laneway on the north side, adversely affecting every kind of access. These trucks cannot turn around. Just like the townhomes, they have to back onto 198th, and 99% of the time there were no flaggers, no escorts. And I've heard and talked to a lady who was actually hit by one of these trucks and almost killed, crushed in her car. The construction noise. This is the same developer that built Ascent, and their contractors also built other developments like at 19753 55A Avenue, and 19731 55 Avenue. They do not respect the Monday to Friday 7 p.m. curfews or the Saturday 5 p.m. curfews or even stat holiday curfews. It will just continue on and on and on. This development will probably last 2 to 4 years with all the supply problems that are being happening right now. The apartment L shape chosen is not designed to be built to an east-west on the north side of 55A Avenue. It is best to be installed on a north to south on a totally different configuration. The shade study done, because of the southern sun exposure, we don't live at the equator. The north side of the building, those residents will almost never have sunshine. The green space that you're having on top of your P1 structure will also be void of sunshine until the summer months. I know this because being on the south side of 55A all winter long for 8 months almost, the shadow of my 3-story building goes right across the street. So you can be assured that the shade study is not accurate, and the shade from a 6-story on top of the P1 structure will extend all the way to 56th Avenue. The 6-story building, the L eastern section, will block the morning sun. The 6-story will block the afternoon sun. And again, I say there will be a limited evening sun for the rear of the north side of this structure. Forcing tenants in the rear of the building to be without sufficient sunlight will not be acceptable for the mental well-being of the people all across the rear and all the floor of the units facing north. This choice of building is completely unacceptable, built in this east-west configuration. The architectural drawing submitted, I mean, if you superimpose page 9 on top of page 22, I mean, the parking structure takes up the whole footprint of the property. The parking structure should be set back from the property line. It's not set back. You boast about all these setbacks of the building, but the P1 structure is also the building. The P1 structure that is above ground, it doesn't really say exactly how much above ground that I could find on the drawing. I just find a 0 to create a new grade level to be built above. For the east property line and to the south of all the established built already townhomes, that should be the grade level. But you want to build a parkade, a P1 structure that takes up the whole footprint of the properties, and there's no setback. Again, it's just unconscionable to do this, and then it's too big for the land it's built on. To do this massive P1 structure right to the property lines will adversely affect the properties to the east, the new townhouses there, and the established owner property to the west. Can almost guarantee, because I lived next door to the Ascent. I'm in Unit 1 at 19752 55A Avenue. And when they did the construction, we're having nothing but problems. My whole garage floor turned into a jigsaw puzzle from all the road rollers and excavators. There are so many issues with Ascent that I'm calling on the mayor and councilors to actually walk through with me. I've heard that multiple units, their garage floors are sinking. It's built, the Ascent across the street, built by Saya Developments, was built on aquifers. They are sinking. There's a sinkhole that has started all along the property line. Now our fence is collapsing. You don't even have to look in the garages because you can see right outside of the garage, all the concrete is breaking up. The concrete's breaking up on the visitor parking pads. I've had reports of walls buckling, as well as garage floors sinking and breaking up.
Mr.
So-
Fitzgerald, you have 1 minute, please.
Yep. Hello?
You have 1 minute, please.
Okay, well,
You can go around again the second and third time, but you have 1 minute for your first.
oh, okay.
Okay.
So, you know, the Langley City Council and Building Department of Langley City cannot approve this application or any of its requested variances. And this developer cannot be approved for a building or demolition permit at this time. A new proposal for development must address these major issues. They should address the deficiencies at the Ascent building before you can issue them any permits across the street for a massive development like this. The dead end road has to go through at 196. And we also can't lose the width of the street. There's been 3 accidents right in front of my house that I've had to attend to, where one guy almost had his face ripped off. 3 accidents. You probably don't even know about these accidents in 9 months last year from the bottleneck in the road. And there's going to be more. There's been so many close calls. So you really need to re-examine any of this application. The shade study's wrong, the building's wrong, everything about this it needs to be re-examined. Maybe a 60 unit apartment building, something that fits on the property and with a proper setback from the properties. And that's about all I have to say right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fitzgerald. Thank you for coming forward and saying something and speaking tonight. Ms. Kuzak, next on the list, please.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Lizette Etzbeth, go ahead and start by stating your name and your street number, please.
Hi, it's Lizette Etzbeth speaking, and I live at 19709 on 55A Avenue. I don't have any concerns because I won't be staying on the street. I will be moving away. I live in a rented house that's going to be demolished for redevelopment. I was just wondering about a timeline. I have no idea what a project like this, what the timeline is looking at. We've lived in this house for 11 years. And we've amassed quite a lot of stuff, and we're going to have to find a suitable place to rent because we can't afford to purchase anything at some point in the future. And, I'm just kind of, my anxiety is just all over the map right now, just trying to figure out how long do we have? Is it going to happen this year? Is it going to happen next year? So it's not really a very important question, but I just wanted to basically ask that.
It is an important question, and maybe I'll get the developer to answer that, please.
Hi, Mayor, Councillor. Thanks for having us. Yeah, Lizette, to answer your question, I guess that would depend on the how it goes with the public hearing here tonight and moving on from that. So it really depends on that, but we we really don't have a timeline unless we know that it's going to be an approved project. And so until that point, we really don't have much information to offer in terms of the timeline as of right now. Kyle might be able to add a little bit more of that, the architect, but I think without an approval or without clear direction, then we wouldn't really be able to offer much at this point.
Thanks, Vikas. Just to further to that, if this were approved by council and we were to go through the building permit application process, provided we had approval, we would likely look at a 6-month review time or application for building permit, and then about an 18-month construction phase beyond that. So, and that's all depending on, we see tonight, and approvals, and then weather, time of year. But typically, once we have a building permit, it would be about 18 months from that point.
Thank you for answering my question. I really appreciate it.
Kim, did you have any other questions, or was that your only question tonight?
Yeah, that was basically my only question. It's just, trying to kind of plan my life.
I understand.
Going forward. I mean, our landlord's been amazing and he's been very forthcoming with information and everything. But I just thought I'd ask the question. I'm in no hurry to leave, just so you know. But I thought I'd ask.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Kuzak, are there any other speakers on the list who wish to speak or speakers on the list to speak to Bylaw 3195?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Sasha Akier is up next. If you could start by stating your name and street number, please.
Hi, my name is Sasha. I'm on 55. I think there's a lively debate here and some clear requests for more information. So thank you for the participants, and the presentation was great. My concern is around, I guess it's a bylaw within the bylaws, or maybe it's a strata concept that could come forward from the developer's side. But I notice a lot of the structures in the area, they're all 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom. For example, ours is a 4-bedroom, although there's not 4 people living in those bedrooms. With all the people who are working from home and students in the area, there's a lot of tenancy. So I'm wondering how the parkade and P1 could possibly accommodate for parking multiple vehicles. I know that a lot of these streets in Langley are relatively old and they're serviced quite often. And I don't see, community parkades or anything like that in the updated community plan in this type of density. So, what is a developer doing to accommodate for, creating such a large structure in an area that's already so densely populated? A little bit of a takeoff from what I think it was Paul was saying, but that's generally my question. How are you planning on managing the disruption of parking, never mind during, but after?
Yeah, thanks, Sasha. Appreciate that question. This is definitely a question that comes up quite a bit, City of Langley, especially with the street sizes and the amount of construction going on. Something that Vikas and I did talk about. We've talked about this actually a few times, ensuring that the construction has as little impact on the neighborhood as possible. Obviously, it's going to have some. There's no way it can't. But we're trying to manage that. We don't impede the neighborhood as much as more than we need to. One of the benefits of our site is that we do have that laneway parking for the visitor. So from a construction standpoint, that portion of land won't be excavated and will be left for construction parking throughout the process. We'll have likely a site trailer will be there, but there'll be plenty of parking off of the lane, off of the street, providing for contractor trucks. One of the other things that we'll have is, as the parkade's constructed, we'll have ability to park contractors' trucks down there while the wood frame components being constructed.
I've seen and heard of that in the past. I guess my concern, my question around construction isn't really the primary, but for example, given that you brought it up, clearly it's only one floor, and what is the height? Can an average service truck get in there, or is this limited to something without ladders on the top or anything else? I mean, it's not as though this is residential above commercial, which typically has a higher loading bay, et cetera, et cetera. My question is more along, is the unit appropriately appointed for stalls to account for more than one vehicle per unit? Or is it just enough? And then does the City of Langley have the opportunity that you can actually go 2 floors deep? What ordinance is in place here? I don't see parkades that are actually a P2. They're only a P1 in Langley. So it's not so much during, but that's great to know. But what happens after? Because I see, an extra 200 cars instead of an extra 96 cars.
I see Mr. Johansson, you have your hand up. Maybe you want to answer that, please. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. So every application that comes forward, every building that's built in the city has to meet certain parking requirements. And for this development's 96 apartment units, and there's 137 parking spaces proposed. 115 of those are resident and 20 are visitor. And with our new OCP and our new zoning bylaw, we're modernizing our parking standards. And in this area, the adjustments will be very slight. What's being proposed here is actually a little bit higher than what we're contemplating for reductions. So the average rate is around 1.1, 1.2 per unit here. So it's more than one space per unit. Thanks.
Thank you for that. Okay, Ms. Kuzak, is there anyone else on the list?
Yes, Madam Mayor, Min Son Vyang, please start by stating your name and address, please.
Hi everyone. So my name is Min Son Phuong. I currently live in the address of 19704 Unit 14. So my house actually opposite the land. So actually, I have major concern on the densities in the area. And the construction phase actually Paul already highlight many valid points. So the currently is a lot of townhouse in the area already. So without the completed resident fully living here, we already see the highly concentrated in terms of car when we find a parking lot, and the 55A there's no access. So every time we need to turn around, actually very hard for us to find a way to get to different direction already. So with another building with provide more 90 unit and more construction. So I'm more concerned on the parking space in such a small street when all the people start to live in the apartment. Then I know that you guys already take into account that one, but I don't know how reality it is because currently what I'm living here, I see the challenge in just a small road already. The second part is the construction phase in such a small road with the implementation of construction probably causing the safety concern and the noise living in the area. So I'm currently living here with my parents and senior and have the young children. So with a long deployment of such large project going to be heavily impact on my quality of life and my parents also. So it's a broad, I could say that our expectation when we move into this house, we don't really looking for just a continued development of a huge project in the area. So that is the major concern. So I know that it's going to be the policy against the construction guiding by the city, anything, but like the sequence of project deployment not to impact to the current residential is really important for us also. So that's all.
Great, thank you for those comments and coming here tonight. Did Kyle, did you have any, I think we answered that before with the parking questions and so forth. Did you have anything else to add?
Not at this moment, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay. And okay, Mr. Johansson, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Just wanted to mention that if the project's approved and it goes through the building permit stage, there's a requirement to have a construction management plan in place for traffic movements and how construction is undertaken. And of course, we have a noise bylaw that the constructors have to abide by. And just going back to a couple of comments about the 55A Avenue Street width. If this project is approved and constructed, the street will be actually improved and probably widened to the extent of the cross section for that local road. It's a 20-meter cross section and includes 2 travel lanes, 2 parking lanes, curb gutter, tree strip, and sidewalk. So like I said in my opening comments, the north side of 55A would be improved with a curb and gutter and enable additional on-street parking and 2 travel lanes. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Mr. Johansson. Ms. Kuzak, anyone else on the list for speaking?
Madam Mayor, at the moment, no one is indicating a wish to speak.
Okay.
Well, Madam Mayor, Mr. Fitzgerald would like to speak again.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, Paul Fitzgerald, Unit 1, 19752 55A Avenue. 12 years ago, I gave a presentation at Simon Fraser University on dangerous construction and illegal construction practices at the Mayor's Forum on Housing, which had retired Mayor Bob Bowes and representatives from Vancouver. And I don't know if any of you saw, but my whole presentation was recorded and played on CBC at 11 o'clock news that night. And I have to address, what I've witnessed and experienced with the SEA development next door and their association with other developments at 19753 55A Avenue and 19731 55 Avenue. And I have to say that just there's been so many instances of dangerous working conditions that not just for the workers and trust me, it's some of the exploitation I witnessed. Vans pulling up with 9 workers going out of the back of the work van that only has 2 seats, and workers without proper safety equipment on a daily basis, and unlicensed people using man lifts and other equipment, hitting utility wires. One hit our building. It just goes on and on of dangerous construction practices. And I've talked already to a few people and my contacts that I've had for years, and I've done a lot of consulting, but all I can see with this development, because this is a dead end, because we are already, the street is overcrowded, like 109 cars I count every night, and they park in front of fire hydrants. As far as I can see, there is no bylaw department anymore. They have stopped doing anything on this street. I never see them. So, to have a development like this, where these contractors already disrespect 7 o'clock curfews, they've left and come back at 10 o'clock. We've had deliveries of excavators at 1 in the morning, shaking us out of bed. I mean, really, who does this stuff? You know, and I'm willing to join up with Technical Safety BC and WorkSafe BC with my contacts there, because I am a Class A certified with Technical Safety BC, also Red Seal plumber, pipe fitter, sprinkler fitter, and also a veteran of the Royal Canadian Navy. I served as in engineering on 3 destroyers, 25 years of first aid, which helped when I assisted with 3 serious accidents last year in front of my place. This development, if you approve it, yeah, I guarantee there's going to be a lot of issues. But I think, again, before you even issue any acceptance to this application, you should visit across the street at 19704 55A Avenue and take a look at what's happening. Everything's sinking. Everything is falling apart and nothing is being addressed. The deficiencies aren't being done. And that 2, 5, and 10 warranty, homeowner's warranty, isn't worth the paper it's written on. People are paying almost $1 million for these townhouses and they're falling apart. And these were done by SEA. So that's all I gotta say. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for your comments tonight and your concerns, Mr. Fitzgerald, and thank you for your service. We all appreciate it. Okay, so I will call for a second time for anyone who wishes to speak to Bylaw 3195.
There doesn't appear to be any further speakers.
Okay, and I will call for a third time for anyone who wishes to speak. Third and final time for anyone who wishes to speak to Bylaw 3195.
We have Jill Cha.
Okay.
Go ahead and start with your name and street number, please.
Ms. Cha, you might be on mute. I'm not sure if you're speaking.
Okay,
or
is that
not.
better?
Yeah, thank you. Just state your name and address, please.
James Chapman, 19704 55A Avenue, Langley. It's my son's property. I'm speaking on his behalf. I don't know that I can add anything to Mr. Fitzgerald's amazing presentation. I mean, that's about as comprehensive as anyone could get about this type of stuff in such a short period of time. I think I share a lot of his sentiments. I think a lot of the people that are in that area share the same sentiments relative to crowding and parking and really the monolithic nature of what they're trying to do there. You're talking about a neighborhood that has virtually 3-story buildings everywhere on that particular street and behind it. Really on the west side of 198th, that's all that exists. And to try and put this particular, especially as I think it was Paul pointed out, after the fact. In other words, had this been in the first place, that may have allowed people to make a decision in terms of what kind of expense, the expense they wanted to put into a property of that nature, living across the street from that monolithic proposition. Another concern that we have, obviously, is next door. There's those other properties. That lady that spoke earlier about her, she lives there. I don't know who owns those. Apparently, there's a application in to put a townhouse complex there on 1 or 2 of the properties. I assume it is. I think is what I saw on the 1 or 2 of the properties. They are if they don't put it up there, or if it's the same people that we're talking about that are proposing to put this one up that already own those properties. Now we got 2 of those things sitting there. which would really make a mess of that entire place if they decide to go ahead and apply for the same type of project. And if the city council is going to approve that project, I think they better be aware that there might be two of them there. It's a little bit deceptive, the entire thing, in terms of people making decisions in terms of what they're going to do in their lives. Purchasing, as someone just pointed out, that these places are up to $1 million and have been purchased within the last 1 to 4 years. Now that we're talking about pretty expensive properties here, to suddenly have that thing plunked in front of you after the entire area, and as someone said earlier, you should go down there and take a look at it, maybe you have, and actually look at the lay of the land there and see what it is, because this thing is going to be monolithic. The idea that they're going to have the underground parking there, which really amounts to a 7th floor. Let's face it, that's really what we're talking about here. So in the final analysis, I think, Paul, if you could provide your phone number or some kind of contact information outside of your an email or something of that nature, that would be outstanding, because I think you'd probably have a lot of people that wanted to get behind what you were discussing there, and the things that you brought up, and certainly have expertise in, far beyond anything I can ever consider. But to hear it, and when you hear it, it's pretty evident that hey, there's going to be some major problems here in this situation. And the parking, they want to minimize the parking, 12 parallel parking spots in front of the apartment. This is not adequate. It's completely inadequate. Everything that's being done here is extreme to the nth degree. It's absurd what is really being proposed, given what the zoning, when people initially went into that area, was, and what their expectations of where they were going to live and what kind of neighborhood they were going to be in. And they are in that, at this point, prior to this proposition, it was proceeding as that type of neighborhood that their expectations of when they purchase their properties or whatever. And there's a lot of families there, a lot of families with kids. And so I think to allow this to be done is really well over the, it's just over the top in terms of what's being asked. It's extreme in its nature. And when they purchased this property, the present developer, and I'm not sure whether they purchased the property. Apparently, it's the same. It's the same people. If they had if this was a plan that they had already, so they purchased the property at a low zone rate and upgrade it to a much higher density, and of course that speaks directly to the bottom line. So this seems to be a lot of deception going on here from that perspective, if there is. And hey, if they bought that property with the intention of building the 3-story townhouses like they've already done there, hey, great, go ahead and build them. No one's going to complain about that. No one's, even maybe a lower level apartment block would be fine. But this is well beyond. This is double what anyone would ever have any expectations, given the zoning and the decisions that they would have made to move into that area and purchase property and actually live there. Plus, there's rooftop patios that has been pointed out on a lot of these properties. The ones that have just recently been occupied, which are to the east, right on the east property line of this particular proposition. Those people, they very likely had no idea, zero idea that this was going to be in their backyard within. Now, if you're sitting on your rooftop patio there, say across the street from this building, You got people, I mean, they're staring down at you from six, 7 stories up. And you're sitting up there with, and your purchase was with the expectation that the rest of the development, and there's not very many vacant lots left in that area. So it would be a reasonable expectation that development was going to be continued in the manner that it had been started and really brought to this level of it. So the fruition of it would be and the expectation would be that it was going to be maintained as that. And I think city council should take that into consideration, obviously, and really, I think, consider the citizens and the people that have moved into that area. And there's a lot of them because it's become very quickly built. There's a lot of just on the edge of being completed. There's a lot that are and there's not a lot of property left. So anyway, hey, more power to them, the developer here, if they want to go ahead and put in townhouse compatible townhouse situations there. Hey, I don't think, obviously, we wouldn't even be in this discussion. It would be exactly what was going to be allowed to be done and what the expectations were be. So, hey, go ahead. We would deal with the, the inconveniences of all that because it's been ongoing ever since certainly my sons lived there for a couple of years. That's been ongoing. And hey, you knew that, you had an idea. Now, this is basically going to double the development time across in that particular location. And it looks like a very nice thing. They put some pictures up there. That's great. Everything they've done is to absolutely maximize their bottom line. And hey, I guess that's what they're in business for. But hey, go find somewhere else that is actually what is to be expected at that particular location. And there are some in the city. I know that because I've walked around and looked at them. You look over by where the Sky Train's going to be and all those, the rapid transit stuff and all that, and over by the casino. There's buildings of that nature going in there, which is in reality where they belong. This is outside that downtown core. This is actually a neighborhood that's developed, and it's in continuity with Bryden Lagoon and that whole strip that goes up through there, the park that's that's down there in that area. Anyway, that's what I think should be taken into consideration here. And I think Mr. Fitzgerald pretty much put it in a nutshell as to what is actually going on and what is going to happen and the problems that you're going to run into at this point, the amenities and the services and all that stuff and the complaints. The city's going to be inundated with this issue. Whereas if they were doing it in another location, it wouldn't be a problem. If they were doing it in this location, as it has been done in the past, and the 3-story townhouse proposition, they can still make money at that. And they're still in business at that. So I don't think it's going to put them out of business here. And they're going to find a property that's appropriate for what they want to do. And they can continue on with what they're going to do here in this particular property under the zoning laws and the 3-story townhouse complexes that were there in the first place, which apparently Ascent is the same developer, and so they should know what they're doing in that regard. So that's okay, about
great.
it.
Thank you for your comments tonight.
Okay, I wish Mr. Fitzgerald could somehow provide a contact information if he wanted to, and we'd appreciate that if he would. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, calling for a third and final time for anyone who wishes to speak to Bylaw 3195.
It doesn't appear that we have any more speakers.
Okay, seeing none. No more speakers. Do any members of council have any questions regarding Bylaw 3195? Councillor Bahal, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And just for full transparency, I live at 19631 55A Avenue, but these are all in the interest of the community, not just me. Just as a question, so I think Mr. Johansson noted the street width will be widened because indeed there is a bottleneck there today. Will that be similar to the width, I guess, near where I live at 19631? Is that the intended build out? Because yeah, it does get very tight in that section today. And then I know there was some discussion about on-street parking. Because if this gets approved, you're removing some of the driveways. Maybe you could explain that a little bit, because I think there's going to be additional on-street parking than there is today because the driveways will be gone. And then another kind of concern of mine is for the construction phase. There is 55A as the only way out, and you are proposing to do construction at the midway point. So really the only way out are via the lanes. So we just don't want to get into a situation where you have the lane blocked, 55A blocked, and people need to get to work or pick up their kids or whatever. And I've definitely, seen construction with double parking on this street for sure. It happens all the time. So we just need to be pretty vigilant with that. And I just do want to comment that I do see bylaw here frequently. So just as a fact, because I notice it out my window and I work from home. So maybe if staff can address the comments about management of construction, because that will be important, and then comment on the road width and also on, how we're going to, have those parallel parking increased.
Yes, through the mayor to Councillor Bahal, and on the construction, like I mentioned before, there's a requirement for a construction management plan, and that includes the circulation of traffic, flaggers, and that sort of thing. And perhaps the applicant or the architect could speak further to that, but that's something that's worked out before construction starts. And of course, you want to make sure that you're keeping at least one route open and being able to ensure that the routes can be opened, all of them, if there is an emergency and that sort of thing, right? So those are all provisions that are integrated into that and the expectations on the contractor when they undertake construction. So in terms of 55A, that has a 20-meter right-of-way, and within that right-of-way, our street standard is, the technical term is the street standard R07. You can look it up in our design criteria manual, but what it has is 2 travel lanes of 3.3 meters each, and 2 parking lanes, on-street parking lanes of 2.4 meters each. And so what you'll get is a 2-way street with parking on both sides of the street. And currently, the north side of 55A, where the development site is, if you go by there, of course, there's the driveways with the single family homes, and you can't park there, of course. So I think you could probably get about 8 cars or so parked there now. It is it's an unimproved shoulder, so there is a little bit of issues with that. There's some open ditches there as well. If the project gets approved and constructed, then you're going to have a brand new curb and gutter, tree strip, boulevard and sidewalk. So those ditches will go away, have an improved shoulder, and you'll probably get 12 on-street parking spaces. So it could improve between 4 to 5 spaces. It will be as the street section is further down the street, like you mentioned before. Hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Mr. Johansson. And through the mayor, just one final question. I know privacy is obviously a big concern when you have these transition areas. So when you're looking at the properties to the east, I know there's no rooftop patios there, but could you maybe speak to what privacy considerations you have taken into? For example, do we have a situation where someone's balcony is going to look at, someone's, master bedroom? I know, for example, there was some concerns with the Huntsfield residents when we built the townhouses on 55A. Huntsfield was very concerned about privacy with the townhouses looking down into their sort of rancher style townhouses. So has there been any thought into sort of that someone being able to look down into your bedroom, as it were.
Yes, through the mayor to Councillor Hall, and perhaps the architect could speak about the details of their side of the building. Of course, we know that the design is stepping down from 6 stories in the middle of the proposed building down to 4 to create that transition. At the grade level, there's a privacy fence on the townhouse side, and also on the proposed building side. There will be vegetation and trees planted so that there's a lot of sort of a green screen created between the existing townhouse complex and units that face onto that side yard there on the apartment building. And with the orientation of the townhomes, the primary living space windows are facing north and south. So you do have a few windows on the sides that are facing west towards the proposed building. But the majority of the living space windows on those townhouses are facing north and south. And the proposed lot is quite deep. It's actually quite a bit deeper than a typical apartment lot in the city. Typically, apartment buildings further east are around 35 to 40 meters deep. This is 50 meters deep, so it allows for a lot more setback area in the front yard and the rear yard. So that helps to bring those windows closer to the interior of the lot and minimize privacy impacts. But perhaps the architect can speak a little bit more detail about fenestration, balconies, that sort of thing.
Yeah, thank you, Director. Councillor Powell, just to follow up comment on that. Speaking of, as Director Johansson mentioned about the 4-story on either side, we've really tried to limit the amount of balconies that face the opposing properties. Actually, if we look at the floor plans, on the ones that we're really concerned about are levels 2 to 4. Levels 5 and 6 don't actually have any balconies that overlook the neighboring properties. And so, yes, we do have a few balconies that face the townhouses to the east and developments or single families to the west, but there's only, just counting at it now, there's only 8 between levels 12 between levels 2 and 4, not including the first story. But even really that third level, I mean, you're level with the, or just above the height of the townhouses beside you. So really tried to keep that in mind in our design and really try to minimize the amount of impact and try to push the majority of balconies to the north and south faces.
Okay, good. Thank you for clarifying that. Any other questions from council? Seeing none, can I have a mover and a seconder to close the public hearing, please? Councillor James, Councillor Wallace, all those in favor? All right, so the public hearing is now closed. These bylaws will come forward for consideration of third reading at a future council meeting. Thank you everyone for attending tonight.